Welcome back to the Next Level Contractor channel and One Exam Prep. And today we are joined by Andrew from One Exam Prep. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, good to be back, Noah. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, great, great. Excited to have you back. In today's title of the video, we are talking on how to pass the NASCLA General Building Exam in 2026 and specifically a multi-state strategy. So, Andrew, why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about the NASCLA exam? Why is it? What does it mean, multi-state strategy?
So, the NASCLA exam, it's an open book, multiple choice exam. You got 115 questions, 24 books, give you 330 minutes to get it done. Have to score 81% to pass. Why is that multi-state? Well, there's 20 different states or municipalities that will accept the NASCLA exam scores as their trade exam for their commercial builder's license, right? So it's pretty much the entirety of the Southeast, right? Georgia, your Carolinas, Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Oklahoma, the Virgin Islands. So 20 different municipalities. So for a contractor or a business that's looking to do work in these multiple jurisdictions, it's a great time saver. Whereas, when you go into each of these states, you don't have to take a big trade exam. It's done already.
Right. Okay, got it. Yeah, that sounds like it's a pretty valuable license to hold.
Absolutely.
Um, so
So
what?
the NASCLA, the NASCLA, the exam itself is not a license. The exam is just the exam. You get your scores, right? Now,
Mhm.
what you do with those scores when you want to go to get Florida GC, Georgia GC, a Tennessee commercial builder, is you'll have to generally satisfy that state's business law requirement, which in most cases is a small open book exam, and submit an application to that state. And that state will then accept your NASCLA scores instead of having to take a trade exam. So NASCLA in itself is not a license.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Um, so why is considering the scope and where I want to be licensed so important, and what do financials and experience have to do with it?
Absolutely. Great question. So, where it can get a little tricky, right, is you got a state like Tennessee, right? So, maybe you take NASCLA exam because you want to be GC in multiple states, right? And you want to
Mhm.
start in Tennessee. But let's say a good portion of your business is building houses, right? Well, Tennessee, your NASCLA scores get you the commercial builder's license, a BC-B. It does not get you their residential builder's license. So even with the NASCLA scores in Tennessee, you still wouldn't be able to do that residential work. And there's a few other states where it's very similar. Um, the other thing to consider when you're thinking about your experience and your scope, right? It's great to be ambitious, right? Maybe you're just getting started out and you don't have all of that commercial experience, but you have a plan, right? You can see how you can do it. So you want to hit the ground running. So you take the NASCLA exam, right? And then you go into a state like Georgia, for example. So Georgia's a pre-approval state where you submit the application first, right? And then they'll approve you for the license and you take the exams. But anybody can just sign up and take the NASCLA exam. So you could, in theory, before you applied to Georgia, you could take the NASCLA exam first, right? And then you apply to Georgia for GC license. You don't have the experience that Georgia wants to see to issue a GC license. So you kind of just took that giant exam for no reason, right? Um, so when you're considering taking the NASCLA exam, you want to, what state am I going to be doing work in? What type of work am I going to be doing? Because again, for example, if you're Tennessee and you want to build houses, then the NASCLA exam doesn't fit, right?
Mhm.
And also, when you're looking into that state, make sure you satisfied that state's experience requirements for their commercial builder license, because just passing the NASCLA exam does not get you the license. You still have to satisfy the state's requirements.
Got
And
it.
that
Okay.
goes to the financials as well. Again, Georgia's a great example. Georgia, they require you to have a minimum net worth or a bond for their contractor licenses.
Mhm.
And the bond for the GC license that you take the NASCLA for, the minimum net worth they're looking for, is significantly higher than a residential builder, right? So, all things to consider. You just want to make sure that if you're going to invest the time, the energy, 24 books, 50 pounds of books,
Mhm.
115 questions, 330 minutes, if you're going to invest the time and energy into passing that exam, that it's actually fitting what you need.
Right. Makes sense. You mentioned here, beware of misinformation regarding AI. Can you tell us a little about that, and where can one find reliable information on the NASCLA exam?
So, best place to start is NASCLA.org, straight from the source. That's where you go to sign up for the exam. That's where you can view the candidate bulletin, all the exam day procedures, the books that are allowed in, the exam scope, number of questions from the different subject areas, which we'll get into later, right? That's the information straight from the source, right? And for your state specific licensing information, you're going to want to go to your state board's website, right? For example, Florida would be myfloridalicense.com, right?
Hmm.
Um, that's the place to go. It's actually interesting. I was, scrolling through my Instagram reels as I often do this morning, and
Hmm.
you know, an ad came up. Somebody talking about the NASCLA exam, and they zoom in right on the candidate bulletin, and they show you the scope. And I was like, oh, this is
Hmm.
really good video. This guy's giving good information. But then it cuts to, and he's like, he takes the scope and he puts it in Chat GPT, and he asks Chat GPT what to study, right? So yeah, no, yeah, don't recommend it. And unfortunately, this guy, he published it to to the internet, so it's out there and it's misinformation because
Hmm.
Chat GPT, it's telling him study this from your IBC, study this from your IRC, International Residential Code. The NASCLA exam, you don't use the International Residential Code.
Right.
So it just goes to show AI is great for broad strokes, but when you're
Hmm.
detailed for a plan, you're going to want to go to an expert, to the source, NASCLA.org, your state's contractor board website, and people who know their way around.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. All right, so we're getting into the exam strategy. So talk about what does it mean highlight and tabbing your books, and how do professionally highlight and tab books change the way you can actually study for this exam?
Right. So highlight and tab books. For those who don't know, tabs are those little stickers that go around the perimeter of the book. So you don't lose time, right, looking for specific sections of your book. The NASCLA exam, you have a little bit less than 3 minutes a question. You have 24 books. If you know that the answer to the question you need to find is chapter 10 of a specific book, you don't have time to sit there doing the thing, thumbing through pages, going back. No, the tab, you open right up to where you need to be. Um, and then the highlights, most how do you know what to highlight, right? Well, all we know is that exam scope. So what we have at One Exam Prep is a team of instructors who, this is what they do. They dissect that scope and then they do the same with the approved reference materials that you're going to have with you. The most commonly referenced pertinent information in the on the exam is what we highlight for you. And it's highlighting's tricky because
Mhm.
too much highlighting, if your whole book's yellow, what good is it doing you, right? And then if you only highlight one or two things, same thing. It's no use. So you really have to find that sweet spot, which is something our instructors, our content team, have done.
Right. And your exam simulators that you have in at One Exam's course, how close are they to the actual exam, and how does this help you prepare?
So they're laser focused in on that exam scope, right?
Mhm.
Anything in those books that applies to that exam scope, we should have a practice question for it. Now, when you're preparing for these exams, right? You're not reading the books cover to cover and you're not memorizing questions and answers because there's no way of knowing the exact question you're going to get, right? Because we know the scope and everything, you're going to get similar types of questions. So when you're practicing, you're not memorizing questions and answers, but you're learning to recognize the keywords, Noah. The keywords, what type of questions are coming from what sections of these books. So when you see those keywords on your exam, it's you've been there before, right? You know
Mhm.
exactly which book where you need to be in that book to find the answer.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned, a specific, 70 hours of focused time. Where do you come up with that number from?
Right. So this is a big exam. This is that I know of in the construction industry, and I could be wrong here, but that I know of, it's the largest exam in the construction licensing industry, if you're talking open book multiple choice exam. The only other exam that I know that, like, NASCLA uses 24 books, right? Florida Mechanical uses 15 or 16, right? GA
Hmm.
Residential, like commercial, uses 12. I think Tennessee, a combined builder, uses like 18 or 19. So
Hmm.
it's the largest one by a pretty decent margin there.
Right. Hmm.
And again, you need to be a master of referencing these books. So the way to think about it is each book is a different spot on the basketball court. Your elbow, your foul line, top of the key, wherever, right? Now, how do you get good at shooting a shot from anywhere on the basketball court? You go out there and you shoot it again and you shoot it again until it's muscle memory. You're doing it in your sleep blindfolded, right? So that's where that 70 hours comes in. It's a lot of practice, building that muscle memory, learning to recognize those keywords. At
Hmm.
one exam prep, we use a hybrid kind of approach where we give you a full self-study course with the practice quizzes and the exam simulators, right? As well as weekly live instruction over Zoom. And our instructor, Michael, who's been teaching this quite a long time now, he's got it, not just the practice down to a science, but also how to organize your books and things on exam day, really down to a science.
Hmm.
He has 12 lessons, right?
Hmm.
So each one of his lessons is 4 hours. So you take those 12 lessons at 4 hours, you add about an hour a night, 3 nights a week doing the practice quizzes, the exam simulators, how you get to the 70 hours.
Okay, great. Okay. And it sounds like, only focusing on one subject like the IBC is a potential mistake.
Yeah, that's a very common thing I hear all the time. I know it's 24 books, but it's all out of the International Building Code, right?
Hmm.
You have 30 questions or 31 questions, procurement and contracting requirements, right? That's not coming out of the building code book. I'm sorry, right?
Right.
And all these things here, like you see masonry, right? 4 questions.
Hmm.
Could be a code question from the building code. Could also be in your modern masonry book. Could also be in your
Good
principal
point.
practices of commercial construction book,
Right.
right? They
Yeah.
can pull those questions from any one of those 24 books. So just because, building code, right? It has that
Hmm.
authority. We naturally believe it's the most important one. No, all
Hmm.
24 are important because, again, back to your investment, your time, your energy, right?
Right.
You're going to invest the time, the energy, and most folks doing this, there's money on the line, right?
Yeah.
They're missing out on jobs, right?
Yeah.
Or they need the
Especially
license to get
multi-state.
the jobs, right? To
Hmm.
expand their business.
Right.
With all that on the line, how are you going to feel you miss it by 2, 3 questions because you decided that pipe and excavating book, there's it's useless information in
Right.
there. They're not going to ask
Right.
me about that.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. So tell me what we're looking at here.
Right. So this is one exam preps course for the
Hmm.
NASCLA accredited commercial general building exam. And this is what students see when they log
Hmm.
in. This list
Hmm.
of modules here, right? And it's kind of the videos scrolling through them. But if you want to go back to the beginning and pause real quick. So it starts off, you see right at the top, to attend the live classes, right? We have the weekly
Hmm.
live classes. I mentioned Michael has the 12 lessons, right? But
Hmm.
then right below that, the videos of the previous classes. So, everybody's got a schedule, everybody's got life, right? Maybe
Hmm.
some folks, they don't have 12 weeks to watch every lesson
Right.
live. Maybe they need to get it done in 6 weeks, right?
Hmm.
So you have an on-demand Netflix of NASCLA exam prep right there, all 12 lessons on demand viewing.
Right.
So then everything below those two modules in our course is going to be what you do on your own, right? It
Mhm.
starts off very foundational with the strategies for test taking, how to sign up for the exams, how to schedule the exams, right? And then you
Mhm.
can hit play on the video and all.
Mhm.
So once that foundation's laid, as we're scrolling down here, you start to see the quizzes, right? And you can pause the video again.
Mhm.
Um, so we mentioned it's all about recognizing the keywords, right? Well,
Mhm.
if everything's jumbled together, you know, if you shoot a foul shot, then you go to the top of the key, you shoot a shot, and then you go around. It's going to take you a lot longer to master each shot, right?
Mhm.
So you work with each book individually with the practice quizzes. So you can go ahead and click play. I'm sorry, to master those keywords. So that's what we're doing here: quizzes, 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 mastering each book individually. and you see right there how we break down the building code by chapter and section.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the end of the course, after you've worked with each book individually, this is where we jumble everything together in our exam
Mm-hmm.
simulators.
Mm-hmm.
And these simulators are really good because you see right there, it's going to grade you and it's going to time you just like the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Michael will tell you if you're doing 88%, 89% every time you take one of our simulators, that's a sign to test with confidence, expect to pass the exam. And what's
Mm-hmm.
great about our simulators too is if you get the question wrong, you can pause the video. No,
Mm-hmm.
you see, we got that question wrong there. It's going to not just tell us the book, but the exact location of that book. In this case, the OSHA book's broken down not by page numbers, but by sections, right? So that's the exact section of that OSHA book where you would have found the correct answer. And of course, when you get to the end, it actually tells you what the correct answer is. But by
Mm-hmm.
throwing this in there, it's
Mm-hmm.
telling you keyword section of book, right? And
Right.
then we're just going to click through a few more here until if you go to the very end, I believe there's a math one I wanted to show you guys where you will find, we're not doing rocket science here, but you will encounter some light math on the exams, and we make sure to
This one,
include
like
that.
this one.
Yes, I believe that's the one. If you can click
Mm-hmm.
play on that so we get it wrong. And you see how it shows you the page number, your principles and practices, where you would have found that formula, right? And then it
Mm-hmm.
kind of breaks down there how to apply that formula as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we make sure we're covering the math in there as well.
Got it. Okay, great. That's great. All right. So now that assuming you went through the NASCLA exam, you passed. What's next? What happens next?
Well, the hard part's done, right? 24 books, that's a monster of an exam. So the
Mm-hmm.
hard part's done, but you still got to get licensed, right? So wherever you're looking to get licensed, there's going to be an application involved, right? And depending on where you're looking to get licensed, the requirements they'll be a little different, right? Typically, there's going to be some sort of experience verification, right? Some states will require you to have a contractor familiar with your work, a contractor you are working for, sign to confirm your experience. Other states, you're self reporting and just putting the contact info down for that person, right? Every
Mm-hmm.
state's going to have a different financial requirement, different bonding amounts. A state like Florida is going to check your credit, but there is no net worth or bond requirement. Um, so when it comes to the application, right, and all these states being a little bit different, it's very important that it's done correctly the first time, because whenever you're dealing with the I'm sure everybody's been to the DMV, right? No, you've been to the
Yeah.
DMV. You
Yeah.
know how it is. You submit the form, you messed up one little thing on the form. Maybe they're having a good day, but most likely they're going to say, "Oh, we need a new form from you. This one's no good. Back of the line," right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of idea. The state, and nothing against the state. You have to understand the state's getting a huge volume of these applications, right? So they don't have time to hold your hand through it. If they get an application and it's wrong, they're just going to tell you this is what's wrong, fix it, and bring it back to us. Hopefully, we don't lose anything. So what that
Mm-hmm.
does is that delays the process, right? A state like Georgia, 52 business days to get an application approved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, a state like Florida, you're going to land right around 6 weeks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if they start finding things wrong and you get stuck in that back and forth with the state, all that time you're losing after you just invested so much time and energy into these exams, it's really a killer because it's money at that point. Like every day you're not licensed is a day that you're losing money.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
so
Right.
what I would say for the application is trust the experts, right? To have an expert look at this compared to what you stand to lose, it's nothing, right? It's a not even a drop in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like for example, our applications team at One Exam Prep, they know exactly what the state's looking for, exactly how to word everything. They know. So some of these application packets, when you look at them, there's the part you fill out, and then it tells you all the things to attach. It's real easy to miss those attachments, right? Whether it's a letter of recommendation or your certificate of insurance, right? or your bond. Is the bond paperwork, is it worded correctly with the guarantor and everything like that? Is it the correct language? All of that stuff can delay your application. So just trust the experts and make sure that you get approved as fast as possible.
Right. Good point. Good point. All right. Well, that sounds like that gives us a good start to anybody trying to get licensed in 2026 for the NASCLA General Contractor Exam. Andrew, if you just want to shout out where you can be reached, just in case anybody has any questions.
Yeah, my cell, it's 954-280-7515. I love helping folks out with this stuff, whether it's a NASCLA exam or a different exam, pointing them in the right direction, making sure that they're going for the license that fits their scope and they'll get approved for. My email, andrew@oneexamprep.com. It's the number one, don't spell out one. And of course, check out our website, oneexamprep.com.
All right, and they can mention NASCLA 2026 for a special discount on any packages you have, right?
Yeah, NASCLA 2026, 5% off. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, great. Thank you again, Andrew, for your time and giving us all this information about licensing. And we'll see you on the next video. Everybody subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, Noah. Thank you for having me.